Tampa Bay politics. It's going to be another interesting session talking about what's going on in Tampa Bay. If you're too busy, you can always tune in here. We're live on intouchnews.com. That's on Facebook every Wednesday morning, 11 a.m. And today I am so happy to have in the house one of those movers and shakers, native Tampanian, Mr. Victor Dimaio.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. I
Coming
appreciate it.
in. We appreciate you so much. You know, if anything important is going on in politics, Victor's in the middle of it.
We try.
Or he knows about it.
We try to keep up. I don't know. We'll see.
Hey, you know what? We always start in the beginning. Where were you born?
Well, you're right about the native part because I was born in Ybor City at the Central Gianna Hospital, which is in far north of 7th Avenue. It's not there anymore, but many Tampas were born there. It was a full-fledged hospital. It served the Hispanic cigar workers that came here for, many years ago. And we had it was a beautiful little hospital. I went there for everything. Every time I fell off my bike.
Well, you are part of that rich Tampa history because you were telling me that you're half Cuban.
Yeah, my mom's family came here to make cigars, which is Tampa's known as a cigar capital of the world. So my grandparents, my mom's side, 100% Cuban, born and raised in Cuba, in Bejuca. My grandfather was from Bejuca. My grandmother was from Santiago de Las Vegas, and so they came here to make cigars.
What year would you say that was?
Oh, that was over 100 years ago, and then my grandfather, on my dad's side, 100% Italian. My grandfather, Dr. Dimaio, was the first doctor of the Italian club in Ybor City. If you go to the Ybor City Italian club, you'll see my grandfather's picture up on the wall. He treated, Tampa was a lot different town 100 years ago. It was very, very small. So the Cubans, because of the language a lot, the Cubans kind of stuck to themselves. They had their own what they call the mutual aid societies. The Central Gianna also had a big. Still today. There's a huge clubhouse in the corner of Nebraska and the Palm. It's the Central. There's a theater. You got to understand. There was no internet. There was no TV. No radio. There's a huge thousand.
No radio either. Yeah.
No,
wow.
not even then. Radio didn't come around till like 1926 or 28, 29. So. Back then, they went to see shows. They had Broadway, vaudeville, whatever you want to call it, type shows, and people would go to the shows. I mean, they'd read.
And if you come to Tampa, those buildings are still here.
Yeah. Centro Giano is still there, functioning. Centro Español is what we call Ybor Square. That was the Centro Español building. That was again. They all had theaters. They all had what we call cantinas, which is downstairs where the guys sat around and played dominoes and, did their thing and kind of smoked cigars and played dominoes. It was a men-only thing.
Okay.
And on Saturdays they had tea dances back in the old days where the guys would sit on one side of the hall and the women sit on the other side of the hall, and they kind of get up the courage to ask each other to dance. So a lot of marriages were consumed back then because of, and that's where Tampa became a melting pot.
I see.
That's where you have Cubans and Italians, get together like myself, and we have a lot of mixture of different cultures that way. So Tampa's a very cool city in that respect.
And
it has been for over 100 years. Because back then we also had Clara, where Blake High School sits now, the Performing Arts School. That was called Clara Fry Hospital, and that was a black-only hospital. There was an African-American nurse who started that hospital because Tampa General would not treat blacks or African-Americans at the time.
So it was completely segregated at that time.
It was completely segregated. Even as a little kid growing up, I remember seeing, white only and colored only water fountains. Back in the 60s, we had we tried to integrate, at the Five and Dime and the Crest,
That's when the
fountains.
Sit-in started.
Right, that's when the sit-in started, and African Americans sat in, and there was a lot of fighting about that. It was an interesting time. I remember seeing we had riots here in Tampa where they burned part of Central Park Village.
Okay.
It was an interesting time growing up, but We managed to. My parents took me to. I went to private schools. I went to Academy of Holy Names, which is over 100 years old too.
Still
On
here?
Still there on
Hmm.
Bayshore. It's funny. You see old pictures of South Tampa, and Academy of Holy Names was the only building there. I mean, all of South Tampa was like scrubs. There was no houses, no nothing out there.
Wow.
And
And
they
the nuns built that.
and
I
the nuns
guess.
they started downtown as a section of where Jesuit High School was, where you see Sacred Heart Church in downtown Tampa now. The building next to it was the old Jesuit High School,
Oh, I didn't
which my
realize
dad
that.
went
Okay.
to
And my
before,
son went there.
and your
Yep.
son went there too. So I
Yep.
went to Academy of Holy Name Elementary School and then Jesuit High School after that. Yeah, it was a great time growing up in Tampa. I grew up in West Tampa near the Columbus Dry Bridge. I've lived there my whole life.
Which
Mom,
still has a Hispanic population
yes,
today.
yes.
Hmm.
It's getting a little gentrified.
Yes.
Domain Homes is buying up every lot they can find. And, I mean, even in my block, they bought two houses. I live on the river, facing I
And
guess the
Domain
West Bank.
Homes is a builder
Yeah,
that comes in, and any lot they can get their hands on,
Yeah,
they're going to put up a
it's
$300,000 house.
it's crazy. That's a cheap house.
That's a cheap house.
I mean, on my same block on Rome, they bought two lot. They had a lot and they split it, and now they're building two $800,000 houses.
Wow, 800
And I'm
grand.
like, there
Yeah.
goes my taxes. Are going to
Who
go up.
who can afford
I
that?
don't know. That's a heck of a mortgage. I mean, if you think about
But
it.
you know what? You know what it is? The people come from New York,
Like you came
yes,
from New York. I guess.
Chicago, and so
Right.
they think it's reasonable.
They're tired of the snow, the cold weather, the crowdedness. I guess they get a little bit more room here. I guess than they do in New York.
And the weather.
And the weather, right? The snow.
Yes,
and
I
the
mean
cold
everybody
weather.
gets tired of 5 months of being in the cold, the sleet, and the snow.
Of course, right. So I grew up here, so I like the heat. Doesn't bother me. I love summer times. I love going into the Gulf of Mexico when it's like 90 degrees.
I
It's
love
like a
it
steam
too.
bath,
I love it too. It never gets old.
And all
The cold gets old.
and all the Canadians go back north with for the winter, like the birds, I guess, and
Yes.
and they go back up there when it's warmer or cooler.
So let's talk about Victor. What have you done for a living?
So I started out, ironically, when I got out of Jesuit, I built cabinets for a living. I had a little cabinet shop, and then I went into remodeling. People, when you go into when you make cabinets for a person if you fix up a kitchen or a bath and build a cabinet, suddenly you've got to realize, oh, by the way, now you got to do plumbing work, electrical work, tile work. I bought a tile machine. And I learned all those different trades by watching other people work.
Oh,
So,
really? So you never
you know-
became a general contractor?
No, I could have done that. In fact, when I went to HEC, I thought about going to University of Florida in Gainesville, and they have
Okay.
they have what's called a building construction department, which is pretty big, and a lot of guys I grew up with here went through that program and got their contractor's license, and have been very successful in the business for many years. But um, and I liked it. I enjoyed it. It's tough work. It's hard work. I
Yes.
mean, it's great when you're young and you can lift stuff. When you get older, it's a little harder to lift.
Yeah, because I
things.
had no idea you were a blue collar guy.
Oh no, yeah. You see, if you look me, I look like a electrician when I wear my tool belt and my other stuff. People say this.
Well, you don't have your suspenders and your tie on.
Actually, I do when I have my tool belt. I have suspenders to keep my tool belt from falling off. So it's kind of funny. You say that, but yeah. So I love it. I still dabble in it. I still do a little construction work here and there just to keep busy.
But somewhere along the line, you got political.
Yes, because even in elementary school, I ran for student body president.
In
was
elementary
inspired
or high school?
in elementary.
In
and even
elementary.
in high school, I ran for student council. But in elementary school, I was inspired. I never forget the day that John F. Kennedy got assassinated. The nuns came in,
Yes.
because he was the first Catholic president.
And that'll get your attention.
And we're
Yes.
Catholic, and somehow or other, the nuns that was taking care of us, said, John, and we all cried because we're kids,
Yes.
and we were
Traumatic
he was
events.
the inspiration. And my mom and dad were very involved in politics.
Okay.
And that's how I got inspired.
Did they
to
run
be-
for office?
My mom and dad both ran for office. My mom
Okay.
was the first woman in the history of Hillsborough County to run for her and Betty Castor, who became president of USF, education commissioner, who's still active today. My mom and Betty Castor were the first two women in the history of Hillsborough County to run for office because at that time it was all white men.
Oh, I
The county
see.
commissioners only had 5 county commissioners. They were
Okay.
all white men.
There's 7
Um,
today.
and there's 7 today. They expanded it. City council, same way, all white men.
Yes.
No
Back
African
to that.
Americans.
Oh, there's one black guy on the Tampa City Council now,
And the
but
county
all men.
commission, yeah. Well, because of redistricting, I could spend an hour talking about the '68 Constitution and how we went from multi-member district to single-member districts in the state. At one time, we only had, again, in the legislature was all white men, and we only had one Hispanic named Elva Martinez who was there for 30 years. But then you had to run a district, but you had to run countywide. And it's hard for a Hispanic or an Italian or Latino or even African American to win a countywide race because at that
Even
time,
today. Yes, it is.
At that time, and you ran for office, so
I ran for county commission.
you
I
know-
ran in a single member district, but and that was daunting enough.
Right. And I personally prefer single member districts because it's smaller, it's easier, you can knock on doors. That's the purpose of single member districts, to encourage minority participation. A lot of that's changed. So in the '68 Constitution, the entire state of Florida changed from multi-member huge districts to smaller single-member districts, and then there was a proliferation of Hispanics, African Americans. I mean, just overnight, we're able to draw districts to get.
So you say by the 70s you had more
Yes.
inclusivity.
Exactly. Yeah, and,
Okay.
and women even running. My mother was a pioneer with Betty Castor.
Now,
but
did
then
your mother
women-
win?
No, she didn't win. She ran
Okay.
against a guy who owned a trailer park out in Ruskin or something named Bob Lester, I think was the guy's name. Actually,
he
she ran.
won.
The purpose was there was a guy named Ellsworth Simmons. Ironically, my aunt was a Simmons out in Ruskin, and he was involved in some huge voting machine scandal. They took all the old time we had those old clanky voting machines like they have in New
Yes,
York, where
with the lever.
the levers and all that. And somehow they got those and painted them and shipped them to South America. And these guys were all on the take. It was a big scandal. I could spend another hour doing that show. And that also led into where the other 3 commissioners went to jail too. So
That
Tampa's-
was in the 80s, right?
That was in the '80s.
Okay, we had several county commissioners who were
yes.
just hauled off to jail.
Right. Again, all men.
All men,
white
and that
men,
was
and
a
they-
bribery
It was a
case,
bribery
right?
scheme, right?
Yes.
So to fix zoning cases. And that's when women at that time women were getting more involved in politics. I think they just saw an opportunity and
So
they wanted
Betty
to serve.
Castor started it off in what year?
This was
would
in
you
the
say?
mid '70s.
In the mid 70s. And her daughter is now a representative.
congressman,
Yes,
our
she's a
congresswoman, I should say,
congresswoman.
yeah,
Yes, she is.
for our area, for Tampa.
But
Our-
Betty Castor went on to.
Well, she
she's
served.
done
She was
so
president
many.
of USF. She
was-
was commissioner of education. She was a senator in Tallahassee. She served us in the Senate.
Florida Senate.
And she
Okay.
served in a county commission.
Yes.
My late father.
Illustrious career.
Yeah, my late father encouraged her. She said, should have run for school board. He says, no, run for county commission. So that's what happened.
Okay.
And then my mom ran too. So so my dad ran for city council back in the early '70s when Dick Greco was mayor. I think the first time, he didn't win either. But when your parents run and you're out there knocking on doors and handing out cards and whatever, you kind of get the bug.
Yes.
And that's how I got the bug. And back then everybody was a Democrat. There were no Republicans anywhere. It was all for 50 years the Democrats controlled
the whole state.
the governor's mansion, the cabinet. We had a larger cabinet back then, which was a result. Actually, that came because of Reconstruction, which is another hour show. Why the system of government in Florida was set up the way it was. But so yes, it was very white, very male, but that's changed dramatically. And thanks to people like my mom and Betty Castor decided to do it, and guys like my dad encouraging them to do it. So it's very it's a lot of fun growing up in a family that likes politics, because we went to all the spaghetti dinners, all the fish fries at McFarland Park, and growing up and.
That's how you got the word out. There was no
Yeah.
internet.
No, there was no internet. There was TV. People would buy TV ads, but it wasn't a big thing. And this is really hand-to-hand combat.
Right.
People knocked on doors. They put up signs. They met people. Tampa was a smaller town. You can kind of know everybody else. Even the city council races, the Tampa mayor races, or so forth. That's really a very small turnout group of people who vote.
It is.
County commission's a
Unfortunately,
lot
during
bigger.
midterms, so a lot of people don't turn out.
Right, and that's why the city races are in spring when there's nothing else going on, and there's a logic.
But
behind that,
believe it or
with
not, it's time already for
Oh.
our first break.
Okay.
Yeah, so we got a lot to talk about Tampa Bay politics.
In Touch Radio, where you can listen to a cruising flow of smooth soul and jazz, today's R&B, a fun touch of hip hop and gospel,
All my music on one station.
giving you a buffet of music, news, and entertainment. We're In Touch Radio.
Hi, this is Angela Birdsong with Tampa Bay Politics. And not only can you catch us on InTouchNews.com every Wednesday at 11 a.m., we now have a website at TampaBayPoliticsPodcast.com. We are on Apple, Google, Spotify, and Stitcher, which you can log in at any time and listen to Tampa Bay Politics.
Listen to In Touch Radio anywhere. On your phone,
Listening right now, man.
in your car,
I'll keep that going.
on your computer. It's a new world, baby, and we are global. In Touch Radio. On your phone,
In Touch Radio, where you can listen to a cruising flow of smooth soul and jazz, today's R&B, a fun touch of hip hop and gospel,
All my music on one station.
giving you a buffet of music, news, and entertainment. We're In Touch Radio.
Okay, we are back with the man of the hour. Today, he's Mr. Victor Dimaio. And as I said, you don't do politics in Tampa without talking to Victor.
Well, I don't know about that.
Now, you were the president of a little group called the the Tiger Bay Club.
Yes.
Tell us
I
about
was,
Tiger Bay.
You know, one of the things my parents did was take me to all the Tiger Bay clubs meetings because it's Tiger Bay is it's kind of a political debate club. It's been around for almost 40 years now, and
Is that unique to Tampa?
no, it's not. There's Tiger Bay clubs in Tallahassee, Miami, Orlando. They're around the state. I think we were one of the first.
Okay.
And it's an opportunity for just average folks to get, to see and hear and face politicians, close up. A
And
lot of
ask
times
them
they get in there to
questions,
bubble and they
yes.
don't, they want to hide from answering tough questions. And of course, Tiger Bay's known. The reason you get the whole idea of the tiger is the toughest question gets a little baby tiger, stuffed tiger award. So it's a good, and politicians were more open to doing Tiger Bay in the old days. Now it's a little tougher. They're getting a little scared. They want to stay in their bubble and not be asked tough questions and get
And be on Facebook.
and be on Facebook. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
there's always someone with a camera in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nowadays there is. Yeah, back then it wasn't as much, but nowadays it is, and you don't want to be caught in a gotcha kind of question. And since it's open to the public, you never know what's going to happen.
You
Some
don't know who
politicians
could
are
be
great
there.
like that. Bill Clinton was one of those people that loved town halls because he would just take any question. I mean,
And it is kind of a town hall forum.
it is it's a town hall type forum,
And it is bipartisan, so
It's
you can have
bipartisan.
Democrats as well as Republicans
Yeah,
in
our
the room.
board is made up of half Republicans and half Democrats. We switched parties for presidency. When I was up for president, it was a year for a Democrat to be president.
I see.
And after me, there was a Republican, and now Tom Scherberger, who worked for the Tampa Tribune, Tampa Bay Times, and now then for Pat Frank, he's now retired, and he's our full-time president of the club.
I see.
And we've moved to the we've moved around. We were at the Wyndham for a while. We were at the Strass Center for a while. Now we're at the Cuban Club in Ybor City. We do live shows. I formed a partnership with the TBIE TV network here locally that does all the school board meetings. They actually have two channels. One channel is strictly devoted to the Hillsborough County school system. The other channel is just general programming. So I wanted a place. I could have gone with Bay News 9. but I wanted some place where if we go over 20 minutes,
Oh,
they
I
would
see.
tape the show and we would have the whole show aired. Um, so that's been a great partnership now for about 4 or 5 years. They air. They even keep all our shows on their server.
So if someone wants to see a Tiger Bay meeting, where do they go?
They go to Tiger Bay, Tampa Tiger Bay Club on Facebook. We actually before we did the live shows, we aired the shows, because the last year or so during the pandemic,
Correct.
all of our shows were done on Zoom. We fortunately had great sponsors that kept the club going. That paid for the production cost. Now that we're going live, we're going to go back to the tape format because we want to encourage a live audience to come. The
Now you
show's
also
still
had
there.
candidate forums, right?
That's one of the gut things of Tiger Bay is to have candidates face off and debate. And we've had a lot of really good debates. We've had individual people. John Morgan's a great. He does a whole show by himself. He's a great speaker.
Now John Morgan is an attorney
Yes, from Orlando.
with a big, humongous law firm,
We got him in, and he did a
and
great. He's
his
done several
big
couple shows
thing
for us.
is cannabis.
He was he got the legalized pot. Now his big thing is the $15 an hour vote. That's
Okay.
something he's pushing right now. That's his latest cause.
But he was able to get medical marijuana
yes.
on the ballot.
And now the next push is going to be legalize marijuana, like you would buy alcohol. So
Okay.
they
They
wanna go-
tried to get that on the ballot,
right, and
but were unsuccessful.
yeah, they didn't. The Supreme Court struck down the language. We have a process for that. So
Which
yeah,
would have
so-
probably been a big thing for the midterms.
yes.
It would have got a lot of people to the polls.
Right. And, getting TBA in was part of my background because after I did the construction stuff, I got into television. And really back in the early, when the Bucks first became a football team, I wanted trying to figure a way to get in the games for free. So a buddy of mine in college says, why don't you get a radio station? So I went to a radio station. Said, look, I'll call in the games from me. I do a pregame show, halftime show, and postgame show. So I worked for all the local TV radio stations, WFLA, DAE, all the sports stations. I did live reports from. And then I went to the networks like NBC, ABC, CBS. Mutual was a big network then that I did radio. We do a round robin all around the country. I would be doing the Bucks here in Tampa, and then all the other reporters were at other stadiums doing their reports. So, and then from that, he encouraged me to go into TV. So,
Who encouraged you?
my friend Jim Williams, he's up in Washington D.C. now. He was just a fellow classmate. We knew each other from high school, and then we went to HCC together. And he was always in television.
That's Hillsborough Community College.
Yes, Hillsborough Community College, and he did a lot of television stuff. I started out just filming the basketball games because I was on scholarship as a trainer at HCC, so I would do the games, tape the ankles, and go up and film the games just to play with the cameras. So I took the camera out and. I got a job working for Channel 44 as a reporter doing sports, and doing photography and editing and all that kind of stuff. I kind of enjoyed the editing.
So what
part
year are
more.
we in now?
This is the mid 70s, early
Okay.
80s.
Okay.
And then, of course, I forgot to mention the Bucks game. I was the first one to do the Buccaneers games in Spanish because the only station I could get at the time, the first one was a Spanish station because all the before I broke in the other stations.
I see.
They said, well, the Spanish station's available.
They
There was only
took
one
you.
at the time. There's a half a dozen now. So I did the Bucks games in Spanish, and then went on to do the games in English too. So. And then, from radio, I went to television, and I did stuff for Channel 44, covering the games. I would go up to Gainesville and Tallahassee and do the Gator games and the FSU games, and I also sent reports out here from Tampa.
So
to
you
other
got around
stations.
the whole state of Florida.
Yeah, and I did if the Bucks played the Dolphins the next week, I would send reports back to other stations. Back then, we had to take tapes and ship them to
And
the
ship
stations
them,
overnight,
okay.
by airplane or whatever. Nowadays, everything's done on the internet. Everything is done by Wi-Fi. Everything's done by a connection. It's a whole different. You don't even have tape and cameras anymore. It's all little chips. So.
So how did you get
broadcasting-
involved in politics?
Well, I still kept the political thing because my mom and dad was into it, politics and TV kind of go, and
They
radio
go together
hand
because
in hand.
my degree is in communications, and that
Right.
was my first career,
And in
TV
Flo-
and radio.
So after HCC, when I went to Florida State, I majored in political science and minored in communications. And I started a show in Tallahassee for the first time when I was at FSU. It was called 1800 Seconds, which is a takeoff on 60 Minutes.
Oh,
So,
really?
So we
Okay.
did that with a couple guys. We went on cable, obviously, first. When I started the show, it was me and 5 guys did this show. And I used to interview Coach Bobby Bowden, who was the FSU coach when I was in Tallahassee at the time. I actually
Florida
went up
State
there.
University.
When you talked about politics, I left Channel 44. My life is very confusing. When I left Channel 44, I got a job working for the Graham for Governor campaign, and I was the press secretary. And I did
So
his
that was
Bob Graham.
Bob
He
Graham.
became governor in January '79, and I went to Tallahassee. I was going to go to Florida, but I got this job in Tallahassee working for the governor, going to Florida State, and getting to do all these crazy things at the same time. So I stayed active.
And of
in
course, he was successful in
Right.
winning.
He won, and I worked for him for a while. And I worked for insurance commissioner, and I still stayed in television. I still Sunshine Sports just first went on the air, and they had the rights to do the FSU Seminoles, and I was the first field producer they had for that. Now it's called Sun Sports. It was called Fox. It was Sunshine Network, then Fox Sports, and now it's called Bally Sports. And they're the ones you see that do the race games and the Lightning games.
I see.
So I was part of that TV network that was really formed by the cable companies in Florida because they wanted programming. They wanted to sell cable, so they needed that extra programming to get people to buy cable.
Right.
And then, of course, it was sold to a network and so forth. So that was how I kind of stayed in politics. And it was the Florida Cable Television Association started that network, and I was a part of that at the very beginning. And then they branched out and then sold it. And now, people always think of that as being part of. They don't think about the beginnings of why that was formed.
I see.
Because people have especially in Florida, people have a hunger for sports. They love the Gators, they love the Seminoles, and
Now, Bob Graham, was he our last Democratic governor?
no, Lawton Childs was our last.
Okay,
Democratic
so that
governor.
was the one after him.
Yes, because we had I think Governor Bob Martinez was kind of in between there, and then we had Lawton Childs. Actually, we had I take it back. We had the Bush, Jeb Bush was going to run
Okay.
for governor. It was a plan for Jeb Bush to run for governor and then president, but his older brother won in Texas, and Jeb lost to Lawton Childs.
I see.
Lawton was the last of the old Southern cracker Democrats that appealed to the middle of the road, conservative Republicans and independents. Now
What year was that, would you say?
Oh Lord, you would ask
In
me
the
that
80s?
question. No, it was later. It was as much later.
90s.
Yeah, because we haven't had a Democratic governor for over 20 years now.
Okay.
It's been almost 20 years. And of course, the legislature went conservative too. Once the Republicans controlled the legislature, they were able to do redistricting and make the districts such that
I see.
And so it's been tough. That's why I say it's going to be tough for the Democrats. And now that the redistricting is right now, we did. I was part of the 1990 census and 2000 census, and once those numbers come in, then every state, even the county commission, city council, all the districts every 10 years are redrawn according to however those bodies decide they want to do it. So
Well, when we come back after the
gonna be
next
tough.
break, we can talk about how you think redistricting is going to affect us.
yes,
Because
it's a
as
big
you
deal.
said, it's now.
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
Yes.
And it's going to start by September, we'll know, right?
Yes, because they have to do it by a certain time period to get approval by the Supreme Court, and maybe if it gets appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court. So it takes a while to get it squared away. But we can talk about that. That's a big
Now, we
part.
can talk about the
big
governor
part
we
of
have right
politics
now.
is redistricting, right?
Yes.
Hey, this is Agent Wright, better known as Mr. Clean. You looking for some great barbecue? Come see them two brothers in the grill, located at 423 Virginia Street, Charleston, West Virginia. We got ribs, chicken, pulled pork, brisket, collard greens, mac and cheese, baby. Come get some and get you a nice, smooth cigar. 304-550 304-550-4431. That is 304-550-4431. Come get some, baby. The Rib Man, mama, the Rib Man.
We're playing your favorite old school. Today's R&B. With a smooth touch of jazz. You're listening to In Touch Radio.
Wow, we got a big topic on the table right now because we just had the census.
Yes.
The numbers are back.
Which I was a part of back in 1990 and 2000. I was the Southeast Regional media coordinator for the census. I had an office in Atlanta and Washington, and I used to travel. I had Florida, Georgia,
so
Alabama.
You understand how it works.
It's very important to get everyone counted because the more people you count, the more accurate the census is.
And we know that the last president we had didn't want to count everybody.
Right. No. Well, there's obviously reasons behind everything,
and then
right?
we know why he didn't want to count.
Well,
everybody.
they didn't want to count African Americans. They didn't want to count Hispanics, because
That's right.
that's going to dilute their power. So yes, it's not brain surgery to figure out why they did not want African Americans.
And they wanted to shorten the amount of time.
Right.
To actually count people.
Right.
But now we have the numbers.
Right.
They are back. And like you said, every single legislative body.
Everyone. Right.
Every single one. That's our county
the Congress,
commission.
The Florida legislature, even now, all the way down to the city council and the county commission. All of our districts are going to be redrawn. So, yes, I think we'll have fairer districts in the city and the county because, especially
now,
in the
just
county
so you know, Hillsborough County is a blue county, one
It
of the
is.
few in Florida.
But 10 short years ago, I formed a coalition with actually some Republicans and Democrats in Hillsborough County to form a Hispanic district. And we actually at the time had Les Miller supporting us because what's happening
Les Miller was our former county commissioner.
Right. And the reason being because the Hispanic population is growing and the African American population is shrinking.
In the city.
In the county, too.
In the county, too.
Right. So they knew eventually the African American district will eventually, if they don't change things, will go away.
Wow.
So the African Americans have always fought for 30, 40 years now. And because of what's called the jingle standard in the Supreme Court, if you can prove that you can do a district for African Americans, that you have to draw a district for them. Hispanics have not had pushed to have that power. Traditionally, we kind of started it 10 years ago. What happened was the Republicans were in charge at 10 years ago. We had 5 Republicans and 2 Democrats on the county commission. Today, 10 years later, we have 5 Democrats and 2 Republicans on the county commission.
We worked hard for that, yay!
So, now it's going to be different. Now, what they do with it, personally, I would love to see them expand. Hillsborough County is huge. Other counties like Miami-Dade and Jacksonville have, 13 or 14 members. I'm not advocating that on their county commissions. What I am advocating for is maybe expanding 2 more seats.
I would agree with that. I would like to see 1 county-wide and 1 single member. That's what I'd like.
That's an option because then an African American you can draw an African American district easier than trying to go all over the county to try to get an African American district. Same thing with the Hispanic district. 10 years ago, we proved we had maps drawn from a guy, probably one of the most leading authorities in the United States, Dr. Darrell Smith at the University of Florida in Gainesville, who's an expert in this. Yes. He didn't know anything about Hillsborough County. He came and drew a African American district and a Hispanic district.
Okay.
And showed it to us. But the Republican Party, who was very much in a driver's seat 10 years ago, they said we don't want that because even though the Hispanic district would probably be Democrat, there's a shot that it could be Republican too.
Especially with Cubans.
Right. So, but I knew that it would be a Democratic district, and they knew it too, because the old Hispanics in West Tampa and Ybor City, and even in Town and Country, are mostly Democrat.
Okay.
Town and country tends to where you go into the Hispanic Republican. And you said Cubans is right. They still can't get over the 1960 losing Cuba and the Bay of Pigs
Castro.
and President Kennedy not giving America. You know, that's another 2-hour show.
And that's Miami.
And I can do that because I've been to a dear friend of mine, Al Fox, has taken me to Cuba about a dozen times to visit my grandparents' homeland. The politics is very unique. We could really do a whole hour show on just Cuba, Tampa, the United States, and the policy of Cuba and how it intermixes with Democrats and Republicans. That's a great show, but we don't have time for that now. But if you want to have me back, we could talk about it. We can bring some other people in on that. But frankly. And I'm hoping, and I don't know what's going to happen now. What happened was we had the Hispanic district, which we wanted, which is really Harry Cohen's district, which would have been West Tampa Town and Country. The Republicans stretched it all the way out to West Race and all the way down to South Shore, and those ends made it a Republican district. So if we can consolidate that, because South Shore has no business, being in with. It's probably
South Tampa.
If
So
you
you
look at a
got
map, it's the most gerrymandered district. It stretches almost 40 miles.
And the Republicans did that.
And the Republicans did that on purpose because they did not want that district to be Democrat or Hispanic. No, you're right. Both. Yes. Right. Correct. You're right. But the African Americans have to fight for these changes because they will completely lose that district and they will no longer be a black
gentrification.
District. Well, due to a lot of things, but yes, gentrification
because
is one
we
of
have,
them.
Let's face it, there's more and more white folks moving into, they want to be closer to the city.
Personally, I'd rather have all single-member districts like the legislature. It's so much easier to run. To do a county-wide race is crazy. I mean, you have to. Hillsborough County is bigger than the state of Rhode Island. We've got 1.4 million people.
It is.
That you've got to reach out to. Right now, Hispanics. Or 1 out of every 25% of the population in Hillsborough County is Hispanic. Okay. 1 out of every 4 people is Hispanic. Yet there's no Hispanic district
seat on the county commission.
That's a huge
There is,
inequity.
however, in the city of Tampa.
Yes, because city's smaller.
Okay.
Smaller districts. It's easier. We've always had Latins have always had a Latins, Italians, Hispanics have always been active in politics in the city. Growing up, Hispanics have always loved politics and always been behind the spaghetti dinners and the fish fries and all that stuff to get the people out to vote. There's much higher participation back 30, 40, 50 years ago than there is today in the city of Tampa, even though the population has doubled.
I would say that during the midterms, half the people in Tampa don't know we're having an election.
Right, and that's true. And it's sad because, nowadays moms are taking their kids to soccer practice.
Yes, there's too much going on.
Right, there's so much going on, and it's just very difficult to get
presidential. They got that on the radar.
Right.
But I can tell you, my son, who is a vice president now at a bank, did not vote until I ran.
Right.
Right. Oh yeah, we got to vote now. Yes, there is a midterm election every 2 years, every other cycle.
Right. Because at that time, politics was a big deal. I mean, everybody got involved. Everybody went to spaghetti dinners. Everybody went to the fish fries. I mean, everybody went door to door.
And you knew the person that was running.
Right. Nowadays, people don't care. They don't even want to go walk door to door. It's too hot. I mean, we didn't think about stuff like that.
Right.
We really loved politics because it was a chance for African Americans and Hispanics to advance themselves, to maybe get a nice city job, to maybe get a nice county job. That was always exclusively for white people. So that's kind of was the impetus for people to get involved in politics because it was a chance.
So what you're going to do about this Hispanic seat? Are you going to fight for it on the county commission?
We're going to try. Unfortunately, the late Jan Platt came up with his 4-3 plan after, they carted off 3 county commissioners to jail. I don't necessarily agree with it personally.
Explain that to me.
Where you would have 4 countywide seats and 4 district seats and 3 countywide seats. So every person can technically vote for 4 people.
Okay.
I think that's BS. That's just me. You can argue. I'll be happy to argue in person. I'm half Cuban, half Italian. Arguing is not a big deal for me. But I just think it's BS because every person, even the district people, vote on stuff that affects people in the county. When you have to sit in
once a person is on the board of
county
commission,
board and you're in a district seat,
is the same.
Right. You don't sit there and say, well, I'm not going to vote on his thing because I only represent, these people. No, you vote on everything. That's your job. Your job is to represent the people. yes, you look out for your people in your district, but you have to vote on people stuff that goes on either in the city, all county, citywide, or in the county, countywide. So the legislature is single member. I'm not saying it's a great plan. The Congress is single member. The legislature is single.
Well,
Senate,
the legislature is not serving us well right now.
well, but the Congress is single member districts. There's no multi-member districts in the Congress. There's no
Now,
multi-member.
with this redistricting that's going on, it's going to work out okay for Hillsborough County because we're blue, I would imagine.
Yes, well, yes, but still, there's debate amongst Democrats on what to do, on how to serve these districts, and what to do. I mean, even Harry, Harry would be in peril.
Harry Cohen.
If his district becomes Hispanic, where's he going to go? You see, I think that's why I think you can draw a district of South Tampa, Harbor Island, Palm. There's a district that could be like that.
Okay,
part of
so
Tampa.
South Tampa would be our hoity-toity.
Yeah, that'll be our
rich.
blue blood district.
Okay.
And then we could have a tighter African American district. We could have a tighter Hispanic district. And
Where would you consider Hispanic? Oh, someone's calling.
And I think basically West Tampa Town and Country are the biggest groupings of Hispanics. Although we have Hispanics all over the county, just like
That's
African Americans all over the county. You can
We
find
have somebody calling. Who is that?
Hey, good morning. Good morning. This is DJ CEO. I just wanted to reach out to your guest. I don't know if I may have asked him this in the past, but does he have any relatives that work for the United States Postal Service?
There was a guy I met who came down here. He was from Philadelphia or something. His name was Victor Dimaio, the same as me.
Right.
And I said, I said I have to meet this guy because he's got my same name, and he's passed away now. He ran all the EEOC benefits for all the police.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
And I went to his
he
office
did.
at
Okay.
the airport and met him. He was a very nice gentleman. He came down here, transferred down here. People don't realize that the Postal Service has a district that covers. It's actually not just Tampa. It's a huge district. It's practically all of Central Florida. Am I
It is.
correct?
It is.
It goes all the way to
Yeah,
the
it's called the
Fort Myers.
Suncoast District.
Right. It goes
Yeah,
from
yeah,
Tampa
it's
to
very
Orlando to
big.
Fort Myers.
Very
Yeah.
big.
And DJ CEO is AKA for he runs the joint.
Oh, okay. That's cool. We're cool. We're cool. No, he was a good
I have
guy.
a political question, by the way.
And actually, we used the letter carrier call even when I was a Jesuit. I remember having my high school graduation party at the letter carriers hall on Cypress.
That is still there.
And it's still there, and we've had.
Yeah, it's
we've
still
had many,
there. Yes, it is.
I remember when Al Gore ran; he came to letter carriers hall. I remember when almost every political function I've ever been involved with, we've always used the letter carriers hall on Cypress and MacDill to do parties and spaghetti dinners and all kinds of stuff.
And God
It's
bless
great,
the
it-
letter carriers because they're going through a little bit
Oh,
of
no
hell
doubt.
right now.
Yeah,
No doubt.
yeah.
Let me ask you this question before I get off the phone. I heard you say that that the African American population is shrinking.
Yes.
In Hillsborough County. Can you expand on that? Kind of tell me why you think that is?
Because well, I worked for the census in 1990, 2000. We're already here to 2020, so it was 40 years ago. That we all, they predicted the demographic change. I knew back in 1990 that Hispanics will pass African Americans as the largest minority in the United States. So why that is, I don't control, the birth rate, the death rate, where people live, what they do, but it's just a fact. I mean, now at some point in time, African Americans and Hispanics together will become the majority. We won't,
Yes.
in the United States. But as far as proportionally in Hillsborough County, I can tell you that Hispanics have passed blacks, just like they have nationally, as a larger chunk of the population. And that's why we fought 10 years ago more. I'm not saying they're shrinking 100%, but they're as a proportion between Hispanics and whites and African Americans. They're still there. They're not going away.
No, they're not going away. But do you see us acting on an immigration policy?
I'd love to see that happen. We need to get an immigration policy. I mean, it's a disaster. What's funny is the great god of the Republican Party, Ronald Reagan, had an immigration party that provided
policy.
amnesty. They called the big A word that Republicans hate to say.
Yeah, I had a
but, you
cousin.
know,
she took advantage of that.
Yeah,
She
I mean that
born
was
in Barbados.
there were
yeah.
13 million African Americans, Hispanics that came, well, mostly Hispanics, I believe, but they became part of the U.S. citizenry or whatever you want to call it, because of the Reagan plan, and. But again, it's politics. Everything is politics. Republicans are going to lose power. The more African Americans are there, the more Hispanics
Mr.
are
Daryl
there.
Johnson, we going to a break. You hanging in or you gone?
Oh, I'm gone. Thank you all so much. Thanks for being on the show, Victor.
Oh, thank you, boss. Appreciate it.
All right, peace.
Hi, this is Angela Birdsong, and during the week, I'm affectionately known as the Medicare lady. Do not try to navigate Medicare without me. Please call me at 813-476-4837. I also do life insurance, and I will help people who are Medicare, Medicaid. Once again, 813-476-4837. 4837.
In Touch Radio, where you can listen to a cruising flow of smooth soul and jazz, today's R&B, a fun touch of hip-hop and gospel,
All my music on one station.
giving you a buffet of music, news, and entertainment. We're In Touch Radio. When it comes to reality radio, everyone is a star.
Shining star for you to see what your life can truly be.
On your smooth soul and R&B station. On the World Wide Web. In Touch Radio.
Hey, we are back with Mr. Victor Dimaio, former president of the Tiger Bay Club, which we went over, a bipartisan group. So we're talking about how redistricting is going to affect our politics in Tampa.
Yes, it's going to dramatically affect politics all over the country, really. And every state, you know, the Republicans are smart. About 20, 30 years ago, they said, you know what, if we can control the legislatures and we can draw the lines, we can have the power.
And that
So
is
it's-
exactly what they have done.
And they, you know, they pack African Americans, for example, in 90+ districts, and they can put Republicans in like 55+ Republican districts.
What do you
It's
mean
really-
90 plus?
Well, with 90, in other words, a black Democratic district is 90% black Democrat, whereas so they can carve out a Republican district with maybe 55% Republican, but still enough where they can win.
I
You see what I'm saying?
see.
That's called packing. That's when you pack, and you know. And African Americans have made a deal with the devil, you know, with the Republicans going for many years now because they want, you know, they want black districts. And to do that, to say, we'll give you all the black districts you want. We don't want blacks in our district. We don't want Democrats in our district. You can have all the Democrats you want. You can pack those districts. And Republicans say fine, or African Americans say fine. And it's been hard for the Democrats to come in, even Hispanic Democrats to come in and say, hey, why don't we try to carve, you know. And they do that in Miami where there's a lot of Hispanics down there. They have carved out. We haven't been as active here in this area. We did. I know when Congressman Darren Soto got elected, we knew. In fact, we are going to get, I think, 1 or 2 congressmen because the population of Florida.
and are those new seats going to be Democrat or Republican?
Well, that remains to be seen because, you know, for us to gain it, you know, the number in Congress is set at 400 something. So for us to gain a seat here in Florida, New York's got to lose a seat, or New Jersey's got to lose a seat, or
I see.
So that they have to lose a seat for us to gain.
And
a
I
seat.
believe New York will be losing a seat.
New York will be losing a seat, so they're going to have to scramble all their seats up for us to gain a seat because in the population, even though it's growing, and we talked about that before we went off the air for the break, is that yes, the population is slowing down. Women are not having as many babies. They're not, you know, growing up, you know, was unusual. For my dad was in a huge Italian family of 9 kids, you know, but that's very rare.
However, we have incoming from New York,
right,
Chicago,
for different reasons. Climate,
Canada.
Right. We're a low tax state. The weather's nice. there's a lot of reasons people come to Florida.
There's a lot of cranes in the air down here.
Right, and
we've got a lot of building going up.
We do a lot, and also but there's people that come from the Midwest. The people from New York tend to be the people that have the money to pick up and leave tend to be more conservative when we're business people. New York tends to be more. Miami's always been a southern branch of New York. They tease. I have a lot of friends.
New York in the
New
sunshine.
York in the sunshine. But a lot of people from Tampa on the West Coast come from the Midwest. From Chicago, Ohio, Pennsylvania. Those areas tend to be more conservative. The people who come down here. So Florida is really a very tight mixed bag of voters. Whether you're looking
represents the country.
It's our elections here are hairline thin. And
I know they want to say that we're a red state, but we are not. We're still a battleground.
I
would say
state.
purple.
We're a little purple, yes. Look, Barack Obama won Florida in 8. I never in my wildest dreams thought a guy named Barack Hussein Obama, who's black, would win the statewide twice.
Yes.
So it's possible.
He had the message.
He was dynamic. It's also look, if you're in politics as long as I have, which is, going on half a century now, you see that the pendulum always swings back and forth.
And you know what? I think that our governor could possibly be a one-termer.
It could be. Look at I never. Look what it
DeSantis.
took to be.
He's out of control.
Yeah, look what it took to beat Donald Trump. Donald Trump.
Yes.
I think Donald Trump still to this day has a lot of support. But the largest growing piece of the electorate is independents. Those,
yes.
If you run for office and you're a Democrat, you're going to get 40% of the vote. And if you're a Republican, you're going to get 40% of the vote.
So it's that middle.
It's those people in the middle, what that little 20% that all of us are fighting for.
Right.
And what people don't realize when you study it like I do in politics, that middle is really not independent. There's really Democrats and Republicans in there.
That don't want to say
they don't
want to
say they're Democrats or Republicans, right? So the real independence is a real sliver.
Yes.
And they are the ones that decide. They're the 1, 2, 3, 5% that decides all elections.
Yes.
So
because I lost my election by 4 points.
Right.
There you go. There's that 4. That's that spread. If I could have gotten a few more points.
Right. So we spent all of our money trying to go after that 1 to 4% to win.
And guess what? Every single time the governor's race has been 1% or less.
Right. Andrew Gillum lost by here. Look at Bill Nelson, who was our senator for decades.
Runoff.
Lost to Rick Scott.
Had to fight for every vote.
Right. So so politics is. And why is politics important? Because they have an influence on our everyday lives. Even people that don't even think about voting for judges can take your kids away from you. They can decide.
That's right.
Whether
Judges are important.
Judges are important. The state attorney's job is important. Just all those elections off. Even city council is important. County commission is important.
As a matter of fact, I would argue that they're more important than Washington.
All that money.
They affect your lives.
Right, because all that money you pay in the taxes every year, they are the ones that decide how it gets spent. And
yeah, because I'm still very angry that we got the transportation sales tax on the ballot, collected $500 million,
yeah.
And now we have to return it because of one Republican and because Tallahassee is trying to run our local governments.
Well, the entire Florida Supreme Court is 7 conservative Republican judges now, and that's why the U.S. Supreme Court is flipped more Republican because Donald Trump got I never dream in one short term he appointed 3 judges.
He did.
Can
Unfortunately,
you imagine?
Ruth Bader Ginsburg died.
Right.
At a very bad moment in time.
At a very bad moment, and one term Donald Trump, 3 conservative judges, and all of our lives are going to be decided for generations on a multitude of issues by
unless they put more judges on the court.
Well, let's see if court packing, which is what they call it.
That word doesn't scare me.
We didn't have we didn't have actually for years we didn't have this many members of the Supreme Court. Even in Florida, even county commission only have 5 people. Now there's 7. Now I'd love to see them go to 9. Same way with the courts. We had a 5-person court in the U.S. for many years, all the way through Reconstruction, and so yes. Can we add a couple more? Maybe. There'll be Republicans will really use that. There'll be howling bloody murder, but
right.
That's the way life is. And the Congress is so tight. You mean the U.S. Senate is actually 50-50.
Yeah.
The vice president has to come in and break that tie. There's 50 Democrats and 50 Republicans. So that's how tight our majority
Thank God,
is.
because of a woman named Stacey Abrams. I wish she could come to
Right.
Florida.
We need to hire her. I don't care what she wants. We should pay her anything she wants. Come to Florida. Help
Just do
register
what you do,
people.
girlfriend.
It's true.
Because, hey, she knows what she's doing.
And we got a new. We have a new chair of the FDP. I supported Manny Diaz.
We have a new chair for the Florida Democratic Party,
yes.
and he is Hispanic.
Yes, and
So
he's a
how
very
you
dear
feel about
friend.
Manny?
But he's a very dear friend. I support him even over our local chair who ran at the time, Ione Townsend, because I knew we needed someone that speaks fluent Spanish to go after that 25% of the population to figure out what to do with the Cubans.
Unfortunately, Miami was a hole, like a sieve, and
Right.
the Republicans came in, got on Spanish radio,
Right.
said the Democrats are socialists and communists,
Right, we're communists.
and
right.
they did it for months.
Right, and we didn't respond. And that's being Hispanic, being half Cuban. I'm also president of the Hillsborough County Democratic Hispanic Caucus.
Yes.
Which we've met for a year now. Thanks to my friend Jerry DiFabrizio, who owns Tampa Tile.
Hey, he's my new booking agent.
Yes, he's your new booking agent, and he's here with us in the studio today. God love him. He's been he's been like an angel from heaven for us, and the whole Democratic Party benefited by his generosity of how we were the first in the entire state of Florida to have a headquarters. Because of Jerry, we had a headquarters. Jill Biden actually came to our little headquarters in West Tampa, which
Hey, I was there when
Tampa.
Joe Biden came.
So that's
at
all.
Ybor City.
That'll never happen if it wasn't for Jerry. We had a beautiful office, a beautiful headquarters. We had in the whole state of Florida, we had nothing like this.
Okay.
So I needed a guy who could go on Spanish radio and Spanish TV and Spanish newspaper.
All
to
right, and that
counter
is Manny.
That's Manny. Ione, God love her, she can't do that. She doesn't do
Ione
that.
is our Hillsborough County
Democratic
Democratic Executive
and
Committee
neither
president.
did the
That's
lady
a
in
mouthful.
Gainesville. I mean, we needed somebody who could, he's very tight with Bloomberg. In 1 month, we were in almost $1 million hole in the state party. In 1 month, he erased that because of the people he knew in Miami that he's close with that wrote
I'm
big
liking
checks.
Manny. He can speak Spanish.
Right.
He got money.
Right, and we need that to be able to compete. When the Republicans are in power, guess what? All the lobbyists give them money.
Yes.
We are in a hole right now. We need to counter that. We don't need to match them dollar for dollar, but we need, as you know, you ran for office, you need to be competitive. And the only way you can be competitive nowadays, we don't have
Everybody wants to support the winner.
right. And
They don't want to support the loser.
And it's all about how much money you have. It's all about
That's
how much
right.
money you have. So,
Money is like a magnet. It goes shoo, right to the winner.
the old days of the spaghetti dinners and the fish fries where we grew up, that's gone. This is all about getting on radio, getting on TV, getting on Facebook, and all that costs money. We still put up yard signs, yes. We do still go door to door. And
1 minute to wrap it up.
But politics has changed a lot since I grew up, and we just got to go with the times. So, see, I told you I'd need about 3 hours to get this going.
But thank God you came in today.
Yeah. It's
I
a
mean,
good
we
show.
got our hands full in Florida.
Yes,
I mean,
we
yeah.
do.
But you know what? If the people mobilize and get to the polls, we can do it.
Yes, we got to register people. The
Yes.
Republicans almost surpassed us this last time. They hired a company for $100,000, and they almost passed us statewide on registering Republicans.
Wow.
So
Well, they didn't believe in COVID, so they just kept door knocking.
they kept doing it. But we have to do that. We have to register voters. Democrats tend to be more mobile, they be more diverse, and they move around more. So it's tougher.
And we
for
got to get
Democrats.
rid of DeSantis. He is a horror show.
Well, look, if Obama can do it in 08, if Obama can do it in 12, we can do it now. We just got to have that kind of inspiration, that kind of money. Obama outspent the Republicans. People don't realize that. It wasn't a matter of just being a dynamic. He outspent the Republicans in 08 and 12.
We can do
So
this.
we need to do that too. So
Is this
thank
the
you.
end of the show? It is.
Oh, man.
Anna, our female engineer, says we're over.
Okay. I guess we're out. We got to say bye-bye.
Thank you, Victor.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. I had
Okay.
fun. It was
All
fun.
right. Thanks for coming.